Hello YouTube, welcome back. Chris here. Today I want to talk to you about bicycle tune-ups and how to tell if you got a great tune-up or just an okay tune-up. What you see in front of you here is an older Schwinn Sierra that I just prepared for sale. It's a bike we took and used. It's got plenty of miles on it, but doesn't mean it can't clean up nice and still be a good bike for somebody. And I want to go through a few things to look for. Now I'm going to avoid the obvious. When you get your bike tuned up, obviously everything should be tight and safe. Your brakes should work and not rub. Your wheels should be true. And your shifting should be crisp and hit all the gears. I'm going to go through some things you might not think to look at that are going to make the difference between a great tune-up and just an okay one. So let's get started. The first thing you're going to want to look for is just easy, simple, overall cleanliness. Now you might think this isn't too important to the functionality of a bike, and you may be right, but just looking at how clean the bike is, you can typically tell how much attention to detail they put. Did they clean the tires? Did they get around the bottom bracket? Did they clean behind the brakes? And by seeing how well they cleaned it, if they didn't clean the bike well, what else did they not do when they were doing your tune-up? So real important to look for. The next thing you're going to look at is the drivetrain. How clean is the drivetrain? Do the derailleurs look nice? Is there a lot of surface gunk built up around your pulleys or in your chain rings? Did they get in all the nooks and crannies? And this is going to affect the functionality of your derailleurs, your cranks, your chain, all of that. We'll also talk about the chain here. You want to make sure the chain is nice and clean. It won't necessarily be brand new silver because it is a used chain, but you want to make sure that it doesn't have a lot of surface buildup and doesn't have a lot of grime on it. You're also going to want to make sure the chain is lubed properly. The way you're going to do that, grip the chain and give it a little twist. You shouldn't hear any real metallic noises. That's going to indicate that there's not lube down in these little rollers here. You can also take a paper towel and wipe the surface of the chain. You shouldn't get a lot of grease coming off that chain. If lubed properly, the mechanic will have soaked it in lube, let it soak down in the chain, and then wiped all that surface lube off, which can be a long, tedious process. But if you leave a lot of surface lube on this chain, it's going to make a gunky drivetrain in the future. So you want to make sure you get all that cleaned out. And same in the cassette here. The cassette should be real dry and should not have a bunch of gunk down in it. The next thing I want to talk about is the shifting. And again, we're not going to talk about hitting all the gears. That should be a no-brainer when you pay for a tune-up. But how well does the shift mechanism work? Now I'm doing this without pedaling because I'm working the camera also. But if you twist the shifter, is it crisp and easy or does it take a lot of effort? Same with the other shifter. Does it take a lot to move it? Because if it does, you may have a lot of friction on your cabling. And if the cabling has a kink in it or a rusted up cable, is that something they checked for? Is that something they addressed? Because just because it shifts and hits all the gears doesn't necessarily mean it's going to perform well. And the last thing to check for is going to be the brake crispness, we'll call it. So if you pull a brake lever, how quickly and crisply does it snap back? Does it feel nice? Do the brakes pull evenly, so both brakes pull the same amount when you pull them? Just because the brakes are centered and don't rub, and when you pull them that they stop the bike, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to work the best. If they don't feel very well, if they're kind of spongy, you may have drag in your cabling here, especially down in this 90-degree bend. We often call it the brake noodle. That can use a little lube in there sometimes if you get a little bit of corrosion or rust on that cable. You might need to do that to keep that brake running smooth. Also properly tensioning the springs, not just to center them, but to tighten it up so it springs back nicely. So just the little attention to details that are going to make your bike go from riding well to riding like it's new and crisp and functioning how you want it to. So a couple little pointers there. If you have any other comments or suggestions, please leave them below. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, and we're going to do some more just like this.